Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS-Inform. It's Friday and we are very fortunate to once again have State Senator representing District 48, Mark Messmer, joining us in the studio to discuss things that are happening in the legislation. And it's good to have you here. And I guess one of the first things let's talk about is the news was released this week that Lieutenant Governor Sue Ellspermann will be stepping aside and we will have a new Lieutenant Governor. Let's kind of go through why this is happening and what's going on, because you know it's a good thing for the Lieutenant Governor.
Oh, it's a great opportunity for Sue. Knowing her for quite a while, higher education is really where her passion is. I think, and when the opportunity for the presidency of Ivy Tech came up, her stepping into the higher ed field, and she will be, that's not a done deal yet. Obviously, she's interviewed for the position, and I think everybody, looking at that role would see her as the obvious front runner. I think they'd be crazy not to hire her.
Right.
But the timing of that, their interview period, I think runs through maybe the end of March. So she's interviewed already. They'll interview other potential candidates, and they've got that interview period, and they can't make anything official.
Right.
They can't say, okay, she's who knows who else might apply or who but. At this point, she's been through the interview process, and the governor said, when he asked her about it, in January, they both looked at it as a great career, step for her, and they said the timing of it, if we were in long session, we'd be there till the end of April, and so the announcement would come, probably in April, and we'd still be there, and I guess it's a good civics opportunity to see how government does certain functions. When you pick a replacement for Lieutenant Governor, the General Assembly has to approve it. The House and Senate approve the recommendation by the governor of who they want to be their new Lieutenant Governor. The last time this happened when Governor O'Bannon died, what's it been, 15 years ago? I mean,
at least. Yes.
When he died, his current Lieutenant Governor stepped into the spot of Governor, but then we had to approve his replacement. And Kathy Davis, I believe, was the Lieutenant Governor that filled in on that spot. And we had to come into special session in October to make that formal approval. It's just a one-day process, but it costs taxpayers probably hundreds of thousands of dollars when we are brought in for session for one day. And the governor said, it's an election year. If we know it's pretty inevitable and the legislature won't be here when that announcement comes in April, just for courtesy purposes, let's do this now while they're here. And my guess is February 29th or March 1st, 2nd, that'll be the last few days of normal session time. We'll have about a week of conference committee time. Let's go ahead and do it while the General Assembly's in session and have that transition take place now. And she was agreeable to that. That's Monday, Tuesday when they made all those announcements, more or less official. So we'll see how that all plays out. I don't expect any problems approving Eric Holcomb as his suggested replacement for it, and he's got a pretty long history of being, he was Senator Coates' chief of staff in Indiana prior to running for U.S. Senate this past year. He worked with the Daniels administration for some years before that. So he's pretty well known, pretty well liked in political circles, and he'll be a great asset to Governor Pence. And so they thought, let's go ahead and get it done and get it moving. So I'd say by the first few days of March, that process will take place, and it'll be hard not to say Madam President when you go up to the podium to be recognized.
Right.
I'm sure, and every once in a while when our Speaker Pro Tem fills in for the Lieutenant Governor, it's funny to hear people just automatically say Madam President.
That's what you're used to doing.
And I usually chuckle that, I'm sure Senator Long hears it, but nobody makes a big deal about it. It's just habit. We've done it with Sue. We had Becky Skillman before that, Kathy Davis before that, so we've had a lot of Madam Presidents running the Senate for about a decade. So
obviously we all wish Sue Ellspermann the best of luck. What a terrific person all the way around. So good for her. Let's talk about what's happening in the legislation then today.
All righty. Well, one of the items we didn't really talk about the last few weeks of the first half of session, I mean, being short session, it goes so fast. Probably one of the biggest bills of concern to farmers is the ag assessing process, the ag property. There's a formula that was developed a couple of decades ago that they take crop prices, expenses, come up with the 6-year rolling average, and then to calculate a market rate for ag property. And then there's soil productivity factors that USDA calculates, and to make adjustments from the base rate that the formula comes up with. And we've been seeing, because of high crop prices 3, 4, 5 years ago, a real spike, and continued, because of the 6-year rolling average, that trend was going to continue to send farm ground prices up another 35% yet over the next couple of years. So the last 2 or 3 years, we've frozen the rates at the rate from a couple of years ago, and had Department of Local Government Finance and Purdue come up with recommendations to make that formula more reflective of current prices, and made some adjustments to the capitalization rate, made it, instead of lagging back 4 years, we're going to have the price window only lag back 2 years. And the net effect of that will be where land prices are now for assessing, it'll stay basically flat with some inflation adjustments. So it's going to be much more stable with the changes to the formula. Probably 2 years ago, USDA came up with some more refined soil productivity factors, but they really don't reflect. The soil didn't change. If crop production is up on a piece of crop ground, it has more to do with the science of fertilizers and herbicides and seed development and equipment efficiency and planting techniques. So did that ground really become all of a sudden 20% more improved? No, it has really nothing to do with the type. The soil type didn't change. So we've decided the new productivity factors they came out with a couple years ago, we're just going to not use them at all. We're going to maintain the current soil productivity index that we've been using all along, and we're going to permanently keep that in place. So
that makes farmers happy.
Very happy. Yep. Very, very important. Without this change, their assessed values would have gone up about $700 per acre over the next 2 years.
Wow.
So I mean, the trending was now in 4 or 5 years, with that lag and with crop prices dropping. I mean, crop prices are half or less of what they were just a few years ago. Eventually that would have caught. They would have caught up, but it would have been another 3 or 4 years of extremely high and rising land values, and really the market, their ability to pay that was just not there.
And that bill is in the Senate now. Does it come from the House?
It passed the Senate last week, and then it was sent to the House, and they'll hear it probably next week in their Ways and Means Committee, and I'd imagine that one will move through pretty quickly as well.
And then it'll go to the House to vote? And
House to vote, then to the governor's desk. Okay. If they don't change it, there's a possibility they might pull out some of the minor provisions in that bill, and if they do, then it'll go to conference committee and get voted on both chambers. But that one should move through pretty quickly.
And it's going to go through this year, so we're okay. What about, we've been hearing a lot now lately about police wearing body cams, and we were talking off camera, the world is getting so complicated now because of technology. We go to different levels, so new issues arise.
With technology changes, there's good with that and bad with that. And the use of body cameras, as far as law enforcement, wanting to have them, I understand that completely. It really gives law enforcement the ability to protect themselves in the event that somebody charges them with harassment or abuse of power, or whatever. It gives them the ability to, if they're doing their job right and doing things on the up and up, they do it for their own for their own protection. But along with that, occasionally things go wrong. Occasionally people get hurt or people get shot, and so the real heavy debate has been down to the fine nuances of when there's a an incident that happens, you know, does the family or the media, do they have the ability to have that footage released to the public? And the way the bill passed the House, that law enforcement could say no, and either the family or the media had to prove why they needed it. Well, if you've never seen it, how do you know if you want to or need to you know, if you have a compelling reason? So as the bill went through committee hearings this week, and I'm sure I know there's going to be an amendment that's going to change that burden of proof to law enforcement. Will need to if somebody wants it and they want to block it, they'll have to go to a judge and say, you know, we need to keep this from being disclosed, you know, for whatever the reason. And it's probably because there's an ongoing criminal investigation, but they'd have to have a narrow timeline of, you know, why they need to keep it and how long, and, you know, then eventually that could be. But even in that time when they don't want to disclose it to the media, the bill will be amended to allow family members to come in and view it. So if they had something happen and some, you know, family member was shot in a scuffle, family members would be allowed, as we'll amend it in the Senate, to come in and view it, even while it's not able to be disclosed to the public. So at least they can have an understanding of what happened.
Is there a law now, maybe I've missed this, is there a law now that protects that, stops that from happening? Or is it just now we're going to, okay, now we got to start dealing with this?
It's new technology, I mean, people say, why do you need to write new laws? Well, things change, cell phones, cameras, you know, the technology of today was things nobody dreamed of years back, and so there's really, it's silent on the issue. I mean, currently I'm sure there are law enforcement that are wearing body cameras now, you know, and I think in general, anytime there's been footage, you know, pictures taken from a crime scene or pictures taken from an automobile accident, for any other type of documentation like that, it's been the past history on any of that has been law enforcement would have to say why they, you know, can't disclose it. And the live or the video footage, it will just be wrapped into that. And so this will be handled currently the way other types of photography or whatever from a crime scene would have been, you know, from still pictures, accessible to the media. And if the law enforcement, you know, doesn't want to disclose it, whether it's a recording of a voice recording or a still picture, you know, tell us why you can't disclose it, for what, you know, and what timeline, and then if there's a criminal investigation going on or a court proceeding going on, you know, you don't want to taint, you know, the potential guilt or innocence of of somebody involved in it, and, you know, so the video would fall into that same category.
And the bill came out of the House. It's in the Senate now.
House Bill 1019.
Okay, and so the Senate now is looking at, but you may change it to say that family can view it.
But family can view it, and law enforcement can keep it, you know, undercover, but they have to be able to tell a judge why they need to keep it concealed and for how long.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like that you think people need to watch?
Well, those are probably the
big ones.
The big ones. The other ones we've talked about, you know, the I-step grading, the pseudoephedrine bills we've talked about, the road funding bills that we've talked about. Those are all still in motion, and will still get fine-tuned, but, you know, nothing drastic has happened on those this week, but will be next week.
Probably next week and the week after. That's when we're going to start seeing some bills going to the governor.
The next 2 weeks will be very hectic committee schedule, floor schedule, activity. This week, none of my committees actually met, but the bills that I've got that went to the House, I spent time with each committee chairman, you know, each House sponsor, explaining to them what the bill did so they understood it, and most of them, you know, after this week of meeting with them are now scheduled for next week for hearings, which will make my week pretty busy next week.
Well, we'll hear about it next week then when you come in. Thank you very much for coming in.
You're very welcome. My pleasure as always.
We always enjoy having State Senator Mark Messmer come in and tell you about what's happening in state legislation, at least on the Senate side for sure. Right. We really appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching WJTS Inform. We're local people watching local people.